Hey heathens! So in evolution versus creation arguments, we often get well, there is no beneficial mutations out there argument. There are a lot of beneficial mutations that happened, but it's hard to point them out because they don't see them as mutations. They think that it was like that from the beginning because God made it that way. So they don't see them as mutations. Things like the prehensile thumb, or, walking upright. Mutations that occurred over a long period of time, and they don't see where that's a beneficial mutation. The reason why this becomes a problem is because they only see mutations as things like Down syndrome, or someone born with an arm that wasn't formed correctly. And so they think of things like that when they think of genetic flaws or genetic changes. So I've always addressed the problem by saying, well, what if someone was born with a genetic flaw and their arm was deformed, but in its deformity it was twice as long? That would be beneficial, correct? And they point out, oh, but you don't see that it always loses information, doesn't gain information, whatever. Which isn't true either, but still, it's hard to get them to understand. Well, today we're riding along and look up in the sky and I saw a buzzard, which reminded me of the story of a different type of scavenger bird, the vulture. So let's talk about a beneficial mutation. Certainly it wouldn't be beneficial for a bird to not have feathers, correct? Not having feathers for a bird would be detrimental, be a horrible thing. But let's apply a little natural selection to a bird who doesn't have feathers, born with a genetic flaw, where there are no feathers on its head. Okay, so it can still fly, but that's not a mutation that would be beneficial, correct? That's actually not true. With the vulture, because there are no feathers on its head, there's nothing for the food and the bacteria to get caught up underneath. And what they do is, when they're sticking their head into the dead carcass, I hope no one's eating right now, but when they stick their head into the dead carcass, and the bacteria that are all in there would get on their head. After they're done eating, they spread their wings real wide, and they let the sun dry out all the moisture and kill the bacteria. Of course, they don't know that's what they're doing. They've just figured out that that's what they should do. So imagine that would have a fairly successful rate, but it would be more successful for the bird who was featherless on its head. The bald, so to speak, vulture would live longer then, because it would be less prone to disease and therefore able to reproduce more bald birds. So there you go. A beneficial mutation that you would have thought would not have been beneficial. That's how it works. It's not like, someone sprouts an extra arm, or they sprout an extra brain, or they sprout an extra whatever. It's small things over time, millions of years, slowly changing, fine-tuning the system to what we see today. Wasn't always so great. But don't take my word for it. Think for yourself.